The rain in London was never gentle. It fell like punishment. Hard. Cold. Unforgiving. Like the sky had looked down at the city, decided it deserved suffering, and committed to the decision completely. Nadia Vasquez had been running through it for 20 minutes. Barefoot. She hadn't planned to be barefoot. She hadn't planned any of this. She had planned to finish her shift at the restaurant, take the Northern Line home, eat whatever was left in her fridge, and sleep for 8 hours before doing it all again tomorrow. That was the plan. A humble plan. A reasonable plan. But plans, Nadia had learned, were things that happened to other people. The alley she was running through smelled like rain and old London and fear, mostly fear, which was coming from her. Her dress was soaked through, thin fabric glued to her skin, her hair a dark curtain across her face that she kept pushing away with one hand while the other arm pumped hard, trying to find more speed in legs that had been running on empty for the last 10 minutes. Behind her, footsteps. Not one pair. Many. Stop her. She turned a corner she didn't recognize. Then another. London's back alleys had their own logic and she had lost the thread of it completely. Left, right, left again, a skip over something wet and unidentifiable, a stumble, a recovery, keep going, keep going. A wall. She ran out of alley so suddenly that she nearly face-planted into the brick. She spun around, back pressed flat against it, chest heaving, and saw them emerge from the dark one by one. 3 men. Black suits. The kind of faces that had been arranged a long time ago into expressions that didn't change. The one in front, broad shoulders, flat eyes, a scar that ran from his left ear to his jaw, smiled at her. Not kindly. The way you smile when the answer to a question you already knew was confirmed. Nowhere left, he said pleasantly. Nadia pressed herself harder into the brick as if the wall might open and swallow her. I didn't see anything. I was just walking, I cut through that street every night, I swear I wasn't. You saw the shipment, he said. I didn't know what it was. I didn't even look properly, I just please. Doesn't matter what you know, he said, still in that pleasant voice, already walking toward her. Matters what you saw. And what you saw gets people like you disappeared. Quick pause, I need to know something before we go further. Where in the world are you watching this right now? Drop your country in the comments. And be honest, if you were Nadia right now, back against that wall, would you beg or would you fight? Because your answer says a lot about you. Drop it below. Nadia's hands were shaking so hard she could hear them. She pressed them flat against the brick behind her, trying to stop it, trying to think, trying to find anything, a door, a window, a gap, a miracle, but London at night didn't deal in miracles. Only endings. Then, cars. Not one. Several. Black vehicles sliding into the alley entrance with their lights off, moving with the eerie precision of things that had been choreographed. Doors opened. Men stepped out, and these men were different in a way that Nadia felt before she could articulate. The 3 in suits felt it too. The broad-shouldered one stopped walking. The smile left his face like a light switching off. We didn't, he started. A final door opened. And everything went quiet. Even the rain seemed to fall softer, like it had been told to. The man who stepped out moved slowly. He didn't scan the alley the way the others did, quickly, assessing threat. He looked at it the way you look at a room you own and already know the contents of. Black coat, perfectly fitted, water sliding off it as if by prior arrangement. Dark hair. A jaw that looked like it had been cut rather than grown. And eyes, a gray, iron gray, the color of old London bridges, that moved across the scene with complete, unhurried control. He looked at the 3 suited men. Then he looked at her. And he stopped. Not dramatically. Not like something in a film. Just stopped. A barely perceptible pause in his movement, like a clock that had skipped one tick, there and gone before you could be sure you'd seen it. Who gave the order, he said. Not a question. A temperature. The alley dropped several degrees. Nobody answered immediately. The broad-shouldered man who had been so confident 30 seconds ago was doing something with his hands that looked involuntary. She observed the Whitechapel movement, sir, he said finally. Standard protocol requires. The man in the black coat raised one hand. Barely. Just enough. The suited man stopped mid-sentence as if the words had been physically removed from his mouth. The man walked forward. Slow, measured, unhurried steps, until he was standing directly in front of Nadia. Close enough that she could smell rain and something beneath it as cedar, maybe, and something darker that had no name, the particular scent of absolute control. He looked at her. She looked up at him and thought, completely involuntarily, this is the most dangerous person I have ever stood in front of. Not because of the men behind him or the guns she could see holstered under coats or the way the three suited men had stopped breathing. Because of his eyes, iron gray, the gray of old London bridges, which looked at her with an expression she couldn't read but could feel landing on her like a hand on her shoulder. You're shaking, he said. You think, she said. She had not meant to say that. It came out before her brain could intervene, a reflex, the kind of thing you say to a friend, not to the most terrifying man you've ever encountered in an alley at midnight. She heard it leave her mouth and waited for something bad to happen. Something moved in his eyes instead. Something small and quick, like a fish beneath dark water. Did they touch you? He said. No, I was running, please, I don't understand what's happening, I just want to go home. Where's home? Brixton. I live in Brixton, I work in Soho, I cut through that street every night, I didn't see what it was, I swear. She was rambling. She knew she was rambling. Her mouth had disconnected from her brain and was just producing words, as many words as possible, as if enough of them might somehow build a wall between her and whatever was about to happen. He let her finish. When she stopped, out of words or breath or both, he simply looked at her for a moment. Then he turned his head. Just slightly. Kill them, he said quietly. All three. What happened next was brief and violent, and Nadia dropped to the ground with her hands over her ears and her eyes shut, rain pouring over her, the sounds coming through her palms anyway, sharp and final and then done. When the silence came back it was a different kind of silence. Heavier. Like a room after something breaks. She opened her eyes. He was crouching in front of her. His coat pulled around him on the wet ground. Rain dripped from his hair. His expression was exactly the same as it had been before, which was the most frightening thing she had seen all night, including everything that had just happened. Can you stand? He asked. I don't know, she said honestly. Try. She tried. Her legs had opinions about this. He put one hand under her elbow, not gripping, not forcing, just there, a steadying pressure, and she found her feet somehow and stood up. The alley spun. She grabbed his arm without thinking, then immediately let go. Sorry. Don't apologize. He straightened. Shrugged off his coat in one movement. Underneath he wore a black jacket over a dark shirt, and apparently had no feelings about being rained on, and placed it around her shoulders. It was warm. Impossibly warm, like it had been holding heat in reserve specifically for this moment, and heavy, and it smelled like that cedar and control scent, and Nadia pulled it around herself before she could think about what she was doing. I need you to get in the car, he said. I should go home. I have work tomorrow. I'm fine, I can call a cab. The men who chased you tonight work for someone who now knows you're a loose end, he said, with the patience of a person explaining something obvious. That doesn't end because you go home to Brixton and go to sleep. It follows you there. Nadia stared at him. So what are you saying? I'm saying that your Tuesday night plan is no longer viable. A pause. Get in the car. I don't know you, she said. No, he agreed. You don't. That's supposed to be a reason not to get in the car with you. It's also the only reason you're still alive right now, he said simply. I don't explain myself twice. Get in the car or don't. But if you don't, I can't promise you survive to see Wednesday. Nadia looked at the car. Black, sleek, engine idling like a whisper. She looked at the alley. She looked at him, this man whose name she didn't know, whose coat she was currently wearing, who had just ordered 3 deaths the way someone orders room service. She got in the car. He got in beside her. The car moved without being told to, which meant whoever was driving already knew where they were going, which meant this had all been anticipated somehow, which meant Nadia stopped following that thought because it led somewhere she couldn't handle right now. The city passed outside the window. London at midnight, wet and orange lit, indifferent as always to the things happening inside cars moving through its streets. "What's your name?" she asked. He glanced at her. "Callum." "Callum what?" A pause. "Ashford." She didn't know the name. She could tell from his expression, the slight stillness, the waiting, that most people did. The fact that she didn't seem to land on him as something unexpected. "I'm Nadia," she said. "I know," he said. She turned to look at him. "How?" "Your restaurant has an employee file." The number of implications in that sentence was too large to process. She let it go and looked back out the window. "Where are you taking me?" she asked. "Somewhere safe." "Safe for who?" He looked at her again. And this time, she caught it, just barely, just the edge of it, something in his expression that wasn't the controlled blankness of before. Something that looked, for one unguarded second, almost like he didn't have an answer. "Both," he said finally. The car turned through a gate that opened before they reached it and pulled up a long drive to a house that was less a house and more an argument about what architecture could achieve when money stopped being a concern. Nadia stared up at it through the window. "You live here," she said. "Yes." "Alone?" "With staff." "Right." She looked at it another moment. "Of course you do." That almost thing moved in his expression again. She was starting to think it might be the ghost of a sense of humor. She was installed in a guest room by a woman named Sienna, late 40s, precise haircut, the expression of someone who had handled far stranger situations than this and had simply chosen professionalism over curiosity. Hot shower. Dry clothes. Tea that appeared as if by telepathy. Nadia sat on a bed that was the most comfortable thing she had encountered since arriving in London 3 years ago and let herself, finally, in private, shake. She shook for a while. It seemed necessary. When she was done, she sat very still and looked at the wall and took stock. Here were the facts: she was alive, which was more than she'd expected 20 minutes into that alley. She was in the home of a man named Callum Ashford who had saved her life for reasons she didn't understand yet. She did not know what he wanted from her. She did not know what happened next. She knew nothing about this world she had accidentally stepped into or how far it extended or whether she was a guest or a captive or something in between. What she did know, what sat at the bottom of all of it like a stone, was this. When he had put his coat around her shoulders, his hands had been steady. Not performative. Not possessive. Just steady, the way you are steady when you want someone to stop being frightened. And that, Nadia thought, staring at the wall of a mansion she had never planned to enter, was either the most reassuring thing that had happened tonight. Or the most dangerous. She hadn't decided which yet. In the morning, there was a knock at the door. She opened it expecting Sienna. It was Callum. Holding 2 cups of coffee with the very slight air of a man who didn't usually carry things himself and had made a decision to make an exception. He held one out to her. She looked at it. "It's coffee," he said. "Not a negotiation." She took it. Because she needed it. And because something about this man standing at her door with 2 cups of coffee in his hands, in a house full of people whose entire purpose was to do things so he didn't have to, felt like information she should pay attention to. "How did you sleep?" he asked. "Surprisingly well, which I think says something concerning about my stress response." That thing moved in his expression again. Closer to the surface this time. "There are things we need to discuss," he said. "About last night. About the man whose people came after you. About what comes next." "Okay," she said. "You're not afraid of the conversation?" She thought about the alley. The wall. The three men and then the silence. She thought about getting in the car. I think I used up my fear budget last night, she said. I'm running on something else now. What? She wrapped both hands around the mug. Looked at him. Curiosity, she said. He looked at her for a moment. Then, quietly, with the manner of a man making a small and private admission. Good, he said. So am I. And Nadia Vasquez, standing in the doorway of a guest room in a Mafia boss's mansion with borrowed clothes and someone else's coffee, felt the ground shift under her feet. Not from fear this time. From something that had no name yet. But would. And that's where we leave them, two strangers, one impossible night, and something beginning that neither of them planned for. If this story had you hooked, drop a in the comments and tell me, do you think Nadia should trust him? Because episode 2 is coming, and trust me, everything is about to get so much more complicated. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you there.